Right now, you're probably thinking in words.
Not just reading them, thinking in them.
That inner voice narrating your day, replaying conversations, planning what to say next.
It feels so automatic, so fundamental, that it's hard to imagine existing without it. But for most of human history, that voice didn't exist. And the strangest part, the humans who lived without it still built things together,
Still organized, still survived, still somehow created the foundations of everything that came after. So what were they actually doing inside their heads, and how did they manage to hold entire societies together without a single word?
Let's set the timeline first. Modern humans have existed for roughly 300,000 years, but the evidence for fully developed language, structured grammar, symbolic communication,
The kind of language you're processing right now only appears clearly around 50,000 to 70,000 years ago.
some researchers push it to 100,000. Even at the most generous estimate, that still leaves a gap.
A long one. Hundreds of thousands of years where humans were anatomically identical to you. Same brain size, same vocal anatomy.
Same capacity, and yet language as we understand it wasn't fully there. That gap is where things get uncomfortable.
Because when you look at what those humans were doing during that time, the picture doesn't match what you'd expect from people without language. They were living in groups of 20 to 150 individuals. They were coordinating hunts that required timing, positioning, and role assignment. They were caring for injured members over long periods. They were making tools that required teaching, not just imitation.
Complex, multi-step tools that no one figures out alone on their first try.
Something was holding all of that together.
It just wasn't words. Here's what researchers have started to piece together.
The first technology wasn't stone or fire.
It was gesture.
Before the throat could produce the sounds needed for language, the hands were already communicating.
Studies of great apes show that gesture is the most flexible, intentional form of communication in our closest relatives.
Chimpanzees point, reach, beckon, push away. But early humans took this further.
Much further. Gesture became layered, sequential, specific enough to convey not just want but meaning, direction, danger, instruction.
And crucially, gesture is teachable.
You can show someone exactly what you mean.
You can correct them. You can build on it. But gesture alone doesn't explain everything. Because early humans were also operating in the dark, in dense forest, across distances too far to see a hand signal. So something else was running underneath the gesture.
Something older and harder to study. Emotion.
Specifically, the ability to read it with extraordinary precision.
Before language, the human face was doing work we've largely outsourced to words. Micro-expressions, posture shifts, breath patterns, eye direction. Early humans were reading these signals at a level most modern people have completely lost.
Because when your life depends on knowing whether the person next to you is afraid, or calm, or lying, you get very good at it very fast. And this is where the story gets more complicated. Because reading emotion accurately requires something that sounds simple but isn't. It requires trust. In a group of 50 to 150 people with no courts, no contracts, no written laws, no words to even make a promise with trust was the only social infrastructure that existed. And somehow they built it. Anthropologists studying linguistic social structures have found consistent patterns across dozens of isolated groups. Reciprocity, the giving and receiving of food, protection, and effort with no immediate return. Not because anyone told them to.
Not because a rule existed, but because the social brain had already figured out that groups who operated this way survived better than groups that didn't. Here's the part that should stop you for a second. That instinct is still in you.
The discomfort you feel when someone does something for you and you can't immediately return it.
The weight of an unpaid favor.
The pull toward fairness even when no one is watching. That's not a modern value.
That's a circuit that was running inside linguistic humans tens of thousands of years before anyone had a word for debt, or obligation, or gratitude. And then there was ritual. Because what language eventually became for organizing belief and identity, rhythm and repetition did first.
Early evidence of communal gathering site circles, fire arrangements, deliberate markings shows up long before clear language artifacts. These weren't random.
They were structured, repeated, meaning that early humans had figured out that doing the same thing together, at the same time, in the same way, created something inside a group that nothing else could. Cohesion.
A felt sense of belonging to something larger than yourself. You didn't need words to create that.
You needed presence, rhythm, and repetition, which means that the things we think language invented, identity, community, shared meaning, social obligation, were already there. Language didn't create those things. It inherited them. It took what the purely linguistic human brain had already built through gesture,
emotion, ritual, and reciprocity, and gave it a faster, more precise,
more scalable system to run on. And here's the part that makes you think differently about the humans who came before us. We tend to assume that without language, there was no real inner life, no real thought, just reaction, instinct, survival. But the evidence doesn't support that.
a human who can coordinate a hunt, read the emotional state of 50 people, maintain a web of reciprocal relationships, and participate in repeated communal ritual. That human has an inner life. It just doesn't have words yet.
It has something older,
Pattern recognition,
social calculation,
emotional intelligence operating at a level most of us will never touch. You inherited all of it. The next time you read a room without anyone saying a word. The next time you sense something is wrong before you can explain why. The next time you feel the pull of a crowd moving together, or the discomfort of breaking an unspoken rule. That's not instinct in the simple sense. That's 200,000 years of purely linguistic social technology still running underneath everything language built on top of it. They didn't need words to build something worth inheriting. They just needed each other.